All right, here we go. It is a beautiful morning, just under 60 degrees, 8:55. Raylene gave us permission to go on the air early this morning, Tom, just a few minutes early. Hey, you were just Thom Lauzon, our former mayor here at the Granite City, if you're just joining us, and thanks for being a part of Air It Out. Brought to you by Central Vermont Chamber of Commerce, Barrie Area Development, FGB Theaters, retirementvt.com, Aeromed Essentials, Vermont Custom Woodworking, and the Barrie Montpelier Times-Argus. You were just talking a second ago before we went on about your favorite book, Who Stole My Cheese?
Yeah.
What is that? What is that? What is that?
I bet a bunch of your, and by the way, thanks for having me on.
Well,
Happy
thanks
Thursday
for coming in
you.
here. Happy Thursday to you.
So it's a book about institutional change.
Yeah.
But it's a great read. It's a short read. And I don't want to spoil it for anyone if they haven't read it, but it's a book about how people deal with change.
All right.
How some people have an easier time than others.
So you were saying bottom line is a bunch of mice have some cheese, and they wake up one morning and they discover that it's been moved, and some of them are screaming, who stole our cheese, and
Exactly.
the others are trying to figure it out.
Well, in a real nutshell. But it's a lot more than that. It's a great book about institutional change, about accepting change,
And you made your kids read
and
this.
how successful people deal with change.
Did you make your kids read this?
I did. Well, I didn't make them read it. I gave each of them a copy and encouraged them to read it, and so they did, and they like it too.
You look dapper today. Welcome, Mr.
Well,
Lauzon.
thank you. Yeah.
You always look this way.
Just another Thursday, but
Man, we have so much to get to. I want to read a comment that came in yesterday.
Oh Lord.
What are you nervous about? Come on. Listen,
Who stole my shoes, buddy?
when Thom Lauzon comes on, every time all the years in Froggy when you were on the air with me,
We had so much fun.
you're always driving the bus. I'm in the passenger seat when Lauzon's in the house.
Let me clue you in. No one drives the bus. Control is an illusion. Okay, so if you ever go through your day thinking that you are in control, it's an illusion. You're wrong. We're in control of our own destiny to some extent, but mostly we're not in control of the circumstances. We're only in control of how we react to them.
However, when you're on the air with me, you're in control. You're the boss. I have nothing to do. I mean, I can't drive.
Do you hear that, Karen? Hear that? I am the boss. Sure. But thanks for that.
Christy wrote in yesterday and said that you, and I think most of us know this, are the head of the Economic Restart Program with the governor.
Not chairing it. I am a member of the governor's Economic Recovery and Mitigation Task Force.
All right. She says, I'm curious what the plan is on that, and if he's also planning on scooping up all of the office buildings for sale in Montpelier while the economy has tanked due to the pandemic.
Did she really?
Yes, she did. Looks like special interest to me. What is this all about?
Look.
Come on. Let's air it out.
Fair enough. No, fair enough. I mean, yes, I am heavily invested in Central Vermont. Interestingly, JD, if you actually, and my businesses are my businesses. They're not publicly held. They're privately held.
Sure.
But we have business interests in many states. And if truth be told, our smallest concentration of real estate and holdings is actually in Vermont. The larger part of it is outside of the state of Vermont.
Yeah.
But I still, this is Barrie. This is my hometown. Will I scoop up office buildings in Montpelier or Barrie if I think they're a good buy?
Yeah.
And by the way, they're all public. They're all listed on the MLS, so maybe other people should start paying attention. So when folks get on my case a little bit about how heavily invested I am in Barrie and in Central Vermont, I look right at them and say, "Why aren't you?" Anyone can do it. It's you got to work hard at it every day.
You've done so much for this city, and the longest.
This city's done so much for me.
Longest
this
running
has been
mayor.
a great ride.
Longest running mayor.
Yeah, that and a buck will get you a cup of coffee pretty much anywhere in town. I liked serving.
What are you saying? You didn't get rich off being mayor? Is that what you're saying?
No. Sorry.
There were a few people that texted me last night, and I expected this. Ask Lauzon if he's going to run for mayor again. What's going on?
We're not talking about that.
We're not. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, of course I'm going to. If I pre-promote your coming on, I'm going to get asked that.
One of your, even though it wasn't exactly complimentary, someone just, commented on my service to the administration during the pandemic and my continuing service. I think everyone should serve on some level publicly. I think whether it's the planning commission or the DRB or so I can't imagine a life, my life, without public service on some level.
Okay.
The Economic Mitigation and Recovery Task Force took up a lot of time in 2020. Not so much in 2021. We're focusing, on different challenges in 2021.
Sure.
But I can't imagine a life without service on some level.
Yeah. Is the economy starting to? Are we gonna get through this? Are we gonna rebound?
Of course we are. It's it's a question of details. Right now, there is definitely a labor crisis right now. We had it a bit. A lot of people, and some people scream about the $300 UI enhancement, and they scream that that's why. Well, that's a small part of it, but the complexity of our labor challenges right now, first of all, they existed pre-pandemic.
Right.
And they really existed. Employers were struggling. And then, of course, our economy really shrunk as restaurants, closed, servers went home. A lot of businesses shrunk a little bit. So our economy compressed during the pandemic, and then all of a sudden we reopened. Well, it was the same problem that had existed 2 years previously.
Yeah.
Yes, it was somewhat exacerbated by the UI enhancement. Probably on an equal level, there were a lot of people who left the workforce. They were just pre-retirement age, and we're trying to drill down on those numbers now.
Yeah.
And there were folks who were sort of pre-retirement age, and they went through a year of staying home, not seeing their kids, not seeing their grandkids, and they just took a hard look and said, I want my life to be more than this. Okay, so I make $150 less a month if I retire now. Well, the hell with that. I miss my kids. I miss my grandkids. I'll suck it up.
Right.
I'd rather have the company of my children and grandkids than the $150. And they made that choice. So it's, it's a complex problem. It's not, if anyone thinks that because the UI enhancement is ended, that all of a sudden this is going to get incredibly better and we're going to have 5 people applying for every open position, you're wrong. You better rethink that position. It's not going to work that way.
Wow.
So it's going to take us a while. I think resettling refugees is an excellent start. We just got word that Vermont will be hosting 100 refugees and relocating them to Vermont. I think that's a wonderful thing.
Well, that's been in the pipe for a little while, but I think last night it really came to surface that it was that it's
so look forward to that and look forward to welcoming anyone to our workforce looking for a better life.
Well, listen, we have a lot of people watching this morning, and comments coming in.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, everyone.
Already. And Raylene, if you got anything hot, throw it at us.
I am a bit of a lightning rod.
Thom, listen, I'm gonna hand this to you. This is a highlighter. I'm gonna give this to you. If I ask you anything that you're uncomfortable with, throw this at me. Okay, there
look, it's lying. Look,
no, I'm just saying, it's right there. It's within reach. Right?
I'm not going to throw anything.
Michael
at you.
Booten.
No. Good morning, Michael.
He's got his hand on the highlighter already.
No, I don't.
He just wrote a comment here. I'd love to hear a list of the properties that he has bought and made worse. I don't hold my breath waiting for that because he improves the properties. So,
and so do a lot of people.
Yeah.
What's
going on?
Maybe I'm a little more colorful. Maybe I'm a little more out there.
What's going on with the Bonacorsi building? What's happening with it?
Oh, yeah, that has been
we got a new roof.
Finally, thank you, Chris. Chris, Till Dark Roofing. What a guy, man. He just gets it done every day. Yeah. We had a little issue there. That building is really going to have to be a gut rehab, and we're honored to have it. The Bonacorsi building, Bonacorsi family, rather, just really one of the key people in this community for decades. And matter of fact, Virgilio was a former mayor and served the city well. So we purchased that property, and it needed a new roof, 12,000 square feet of roof. So that was back in April. Contacted Chris. He ordered up the polyiso. You insulate. It's called polyiso. It's sheets of, let's just call it styrofoam because most people can relate to that, but it's a little more complex than that. And it's an insulation that you put over the existing structure, and then you put a rubber roof over it. So we ordered up the polyiso. The order went through. Half of it came in. We only wanted half because when you get all that polyiso up on the roof, it's hard to work around it. So you put half on the roof at a time, and then you do half the roof, and then you get the other half. Well, the first half of the polyiso came in within weeks, got it up on the roof. Chris and his guys are going at it hard every day, and all of a sudden in June, he calls the supplier and says, well, I'd like the other half of my order. And they're like, yeah, about that. And so we waited until August. So
you had to run over to Nelson's to get some tarps.
No. It's a tough building, but obviously we couldn't start the inside renovation, which we also planned for this summer, because we didn't have the polyiso.
What's going on inside there?
Really just a gut renovation. Sometimes when you buy older buildings, there are some components that are serviceable and components that are not. The approach we've always taken is we really do a deep dive into the building. So new plumbing, new electrical. We just do everything new. And then you don't have to worry about it. You don't have high maintenance costs. And the building is serviceable again. So that is a great building, great location. But like a lot of things, we've all experienced this, appliances. Take your pick. We all experienced supply shortages and disruptions during the pandemic. So that was the biggest challenge in 2021. 2020, it was different. 2020 was, we were doing some renovations in 2020. We were very careful. People were masked up. Our contractors were great. But every once in a while, I'd get a call from one of the contractors, and they would say, one of my guys isn't feeling well, and he's going in to get tested. So you'd have an obligation to notify everyone what was going on, and if you were a close contact, so we'd shut the job down.
Had to.
And so we'd shut down for a couple of weeks. Thankfully, with everything worked out. We didn't have a positive case where others were infected, so we're really grateful for that part. But it was just start, stop, all during 2020. Then 21, 21 comes around, and we're start, stop for a different reason. Specifically, the supply chain was just sucked.
The last time I had you on the air here on the Air It Out podcast, I was putting a little bit of heat on you. That there was some discussion that we had about an indoor grow lab.
It's an industry. It's an emerging industry here in Vermont. I think much like hemp, you got to remember that.
I'm laughing and you're not.
Well, because to me it's just business. I don't think there are a lot of people who think everybody's going to get rich on growing marijuana. I think people are going to make a living growing marijuana, but I think much like the hemp industry, if you think about the marijuana industry, you can't bring marijuana interstate. So if you think about where the marijuana that is grown is going to be consumed, it's going to be consumed right here in Vermont. We're a small state, 600,000 people. We want to avoid some states actually experienced an abundance of supply.
Yeah, Massachusetts was doing very well, but look at the regulation out in California for medicinal and recreational. My God, is the fight huge out there?
Yeah, so Do I think it's going to be a good industry for Vermont? Yeah, but I don't, but it's a very different industry. When people sometimes liken it to our craft beer industry, our distillate industry, that is a very different business model, because with craft beer and distillate, you can bring it cross state lines. With marijuana, it doesn't work that way. Your market is limited to your state.
Right.
So I think it's going to be a good industry. I think it's going to be a solid industry. I think the board currently regulating it, I think they're being thoughtful in how they're going about it. I think they're doing a good job. But so, if we can get involved on some level, yeah, happy to do that. I mean, just like we've supported restaurants and retail and office, and just another industry.
Sure. Listen, I reached out to Brian Judd yesterday and asked him if he could either come in or call in by phone or come in person to chat with us this morning. And he's in an area where he doesn't have any cell service. He's on an island, so we will extend that invite. We'll extend that
on an
invite.
Island.
Well, he's
lucky him.
He's taken a little bit of R&R.
Good for him.
But we've extended that invite for him to come back. But so he's not here. But we are. I did tell him that we are going to be talking about him. So what happened?
I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know that we'll be talking specifically about him. I think part of the problem is sometimes we make things
right,
like the comment from your. From your email earlier on in the podcast.
Right.
We make it too much about people.
Yeah.
And
so
you want to know what happened? I mean, first of all, other than Saturday morning,
Brian is front and center with this story of what happened.
Well, he should be. I mean, he did make the initial request. Prior to Saturday morning, I never had a direct conversation with Brian.
Yeah.
He and I never spoke
about
amazing. That. I don't know that I'm sure I could find his cell number, but.
So let's break it down for folks that are not familiar with what we're talking about. 20 years ago.
Who on earth isn't familiar with what? Holy cow! This thing took on a life of its own.
You'd be surprised how many viewers and listeners we have from out of state.
Okay.
September 11th, 20 years ago, Jim Ward, who at the time was a city councilor, had the idea of creating a huge American flag that was going to be pieced together by 3 foot by 3 foot sections of flag, all sewn together, which Spalding High School and Barry Town School both did and accomplished, and made this huge flag that was personalized, customized for our community. It was a huge flag. Separate from that, he also commissioned a very large 20 by 30 American flag to be strung up on a cable above North Main Street in the days and weeks following September 11th, 2001. And it was a huge flag, and it looked amazing, and it was just the talk of the town. It was beautiful, beautiful. The flag was taken down, folded up, put it away in Jim Ward's closet. 20 years later, Brian Judd gets in touch with Jim Ward and says, let's get the flag out, dust it off, clean it up, fix it up, tighten it up, make sure it looks good, that it's not frayed or anything, and let's have a good look at this cable above the street, make sure that its integrity is there, that it's structurally sound, that it can hold the weight of this flag. 20 years has passed. Let's hire an engineer and consultants to come in, have a look at this, present it to City Council. Over the course of 4 weeks, he did that, and it was very much assuming that it was very much considered, because there was a lot of listening that was going on by City Council. And then in the 11th hour, the Tuesday before September 11th, surprisingly, it was the kibosh was put on this. Right. What happened?
Well, I mean, Councilor Booton made a motion to allow Mr. Judd to fly the flag or fly a smaller flag. Councilor Bruton's motion was really to take it out of the hands of the council and sort of have the council say, yes, we're okay with this idea, but you have to work through the city manager, Steve McKenzie. And that's not uncommon. I mean, that's,
Sure.
Normally when the council is faced with a decision like that, that's normally what you do is say,
Right.
well, you can take care of this administratively. You don't need to be at the council. Here are our concerns.
Yeah.
And as long as you address those concerns and the city manager, who we trust, signs off on it, we're good with it.
Right.
And the motion died for lack of a second. So the motion that he made was not seconded, and the council did not give their permission for the flag to be flown over Main Street. So I was surprised by that decision as well. I had followed it somewhat, to be honest, JD. I had followed it somewhat. Not really closely. When that happened, and I'll apologize for Brian. I try to respect everybody.
I know you
I do. I know some people would disagree with that statement, but I try to. I don't always succeed. My first reaction was, what did he do? What the heck did he say to them? Because, listen, I don't always agree with Brian on everything. But my first reaction is, what did he do? Did he challenge them? Did he, what did he do to upset them to the point where they wouldn't grant this request? And he had obviously worked hard on it. So I went back and I watched all of the meetings 3 times before I made any phone calls.
In the previous weeks.
Yes. I watched 3 times. And I kept looking for that moment where he challenged them. I went back to the very beginning, and I can really relate to this. I miss my dad every day. I lost my dad in December of 19. Brian recently lost his dad, Bruce. And, Bruce, what a guy. What a guy. To think of all of the people that Bruce comforted when they lost someone. I just always enjoyed Bruce Judd. He was a consummate gentleman. And so Brian relayed that to the council, how important the flag was to his dad and how important his dad was to him. And then as the council expressed legitimate concerns, Brian would address them. Obviously, the structural integrity of the mounting points and different things like that. At one point, and I'm the biggest Steve McKenzie fan in the world. Barry's going to have a hard time replacing Steve McKenzie. At one point during the discussion, Steve McKenzie made, right or wrong, because this is a council-level decision, Steve made the comment, he said, I can't imagine the council not approving this.
Right.
And no one, and I'm not saying they had an obligation to, but no one said, well, not so fast, Steve. First of all, this isn't before you, it's before the council, and please don't speak. No one said that. So the moment passed, and I think the expectation was, Mr. Judd, if you check these boxes, we're okay with this. That was the expectation. Reality turned out to be, a little different. And so as I watched the meetings, 3 times, start to finish, my opinion was that they didn't approve it because it was Brian Judd. Because Brian Judd certainly holds a different political opinion than many on the council. But personally, I found his request to be sincere. He was thorough. He was lucid and respectful. Absolutely. Yeah. And, so there's this moment, JD, where, and I'm not saying, look, I've made as many mistakes as anybody. But there were times when I served the city where folks that I didn't see eye to eye with would come in. And if they presented something that was sincere and something that was worthy of approval, I always looked at that as an opportunity. There's always a canyon sometimes, and especially nowadays, people who hold different viewpoints, everything is very black and white. And if you've got someone who holds a different opinion, there's a big canyon between you. And I felt like the council had the opportunity to narrow that canyon, to look at Brian and say, Mr. Judd, we don't agree with some of your beliefs and positions. But this is a lucid thoughtful, respectful request, and we are going to support you. And so there's that opportunity to make that canyon smaller, and they didn't. And a city councilor even posted, so that was my suspicion, and a city councilor even posted on social media after the decision that the reason the motion wasn't seconded is because it was Brian Judd.
Well, Teddy wrote that.
I'm not interested in calling anybody out and creating more devices. I'm just telling you, you asked me a question.
Yeah, no, I did.
And I'm answering it, honestly.
Yeah, I know you are. But I can call him out because I have it right here in front of me. And
there's no need to call anyone out. People
it's public. It's on a public platform. It's on Facebook.
Councilor Shambiel, I respect the hell out of her because she answered the question. Okay, she's not required to vote yes or no. Her vote is her vote. Okay, her constituents can accept it or not, but it's her vote. And so I want to say thank you to her for explaining her vote. Now, maybe people didn't like her explanation. Well, that's too bad. But I admire her courage in explaining her vote. She explained it to her constituents, and I find that admirable. So when I watched those meetings, I said, my God, my belief is, and it was later confirmed, they didn't approve this because it was Brian Judd. And I just thought, what a missed opportunity to look at someone and say, Brian, I don't agree with you, but we're going to approve this because we find it to be thorough, respectful, and you're making it, in our opinion, for the right reasons. And that opportunity was missed. And I felt badly for Brian. Maybe, and you can maybe all you want. Maybe he was. I certainly didn't appreciate the fact that Brian sued the city, and alluded to the fact that. Let me tell you something. Carol Dawes will get aggressive if you don't even joke about elections with Carol Dawes. I learned that early on. No one that I have ever met cares about the integrity of an election more than Carol Dawes. She has done an incredible job for this city. So did I appreciate that? No. But, in my opinion, he was trying to do something nice, something worthy, something unifying. Uh-huh. I didn't see, and there was not, in the aftermath when we did raise the flag, there were no other flags flying but the American flag. That was the only flag that flew, at that moment. And the people who attended only to honor those lost on 9/11 20 years ago. So getting back to that, so that's kind of the lead up to it. And I'm sorry, that's a really long explanation, but I tried to be thorough I didn't want, so when I had watched the meetings, and again, that's my belief, people can post or whatever and not like it, but that's my belief. And like I said, later confirmed. So I made the call. And the person I called, because he's one of the smartest guys I know in terms of assembling something, Byron and Charlie Atwood at DMS Machine. So great guys. So I called Byron and said, first of all, I explained the flag, how much he said, yeah, I'm familiar with it, how much it weighed. And I said, now you have a man lift, don't you? And he said, yeah, we have a 60-footer. I said, okay, can I rent that? The first thing I want to make sure, Byron, can you fly this flag safely from a man lift? And he's like, yeah, absolutely you can. And, they're engineers. So they did the math and said, yeah, you can. We'll have to fabricate some brackets and we'll have to have a big pole. And so, they really did all the heavy lifting. And but the only thing that Byron said to me is he said, but Thom, I won't accept your money to do this. It's, I'm part of this community too. And I believe that was the wrong decision, so I'm not going to charge you for this. And so I did ask Byron. I said, well, thank you, first of all, but there's a cost to everything. So I appreciate the gesture. Could you keep track of what the bill would have been and let me know, because I'd like to make a donation to the 9/11 Memorial Fund in the name of DMS. And, the guys that they call the Men of Steel at DMS. And, so that's the story. And I never spoke directly to Brian. So through another acquaintance who I knew Brian, I just sent a text message and I said, look, I've done this. So this opportunity is there. This was Brian's project, not mine. So if Brian would like to have the flag at DMS on Friday morning so they could begin the fabrication process, they will have the lift at City Hall Park at 9 a.m. on Saturday. And you can do this. But, it's Brian's choice. He can take advantage of it or not. And, so he did. So I never spoke directly to Brian Judd until Saturday morning, just before the, memorial service.
And it was a beautiful memorial service. It was
a beautiful service. It was a beautiful day, just like it was 20 years ago. That day,
exactly.
It was the same type of, not quite fall, but there was a little bit of chill in the air.
Blue sky.
Yeah, it was very. Yeah, as I thought about it, it was very much like that day. So.
And a very profound moment for a lot of folks that were in City Hall Park that day. It was a really powerful time.
Yeah. I mean, for those of us
and
who,
respectful.
Of course, it was respectful.
And not political.
Wasn't concerned. No. I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't see the potential. And I said a quick prayer that morning and said, man, because there's just certain things you don't disrespect with any sort of ulterior motive, and that event certainly was one of them.
That's right.
And, so I'd be lying if I didn't recognize the possibility, and I said a quick prayer that morning and said, I hope people understand, and I hope people honor why we're here, and they don't try to take it sideways. And, no one did.
Yeah.
No one did. And, the mayor was there, gave some very moving remarks. Councilor Booton was there. I appreciated them. Matter of fact, the mayor had other plans. So we canceled those plans so that he could be there and make some remarks. And, as I've, sometimes people, the mayor's gotten swept up in a few comments. And let me just say this. No one respects the American flag or the right to fly it more than Lucas Herring. His father is a veteran. Okay. He has volunteered countless hours, holidays, down at the American Legion.
Yes, he has.
And, I just hold him in the highest regard.
I'm glad he was there.
It didn't surprise me. It didn't surprise me. And as a former mayor, I admire his courage. I understand, and I understand and respect that others on the council may feel differently. But, as mayor, you're always looking to keep your council unified. And sometimes if you have to take a position that is contrary to what a majority of the council believes, that can be hard as a mayor. And,
right.
So he did that, and I appreciate that. And getting back to the lack of a second for that motion. I think the reason bothered me. How it became very personal bothered me.
Was it shameful?
Not going to go there.
Okay.
Look, there's no value in shitting on people. Go back. People have asked me repeatedly, what do you think, for example, of Donald Trump? If you want to know what I think of Donald Trump, you have to go back to 2015 to one social media post that I made during the primary. Mm-hmm. Okay? There was one. Mm-hmm. I don't repeat myself.
Yeah.
I don't have time. I'm a busy guy. So, but what that lack of a second took me back to was Paul Poirier. Mm-hmm. Remember Paul?
Very much.
And I haven't heard
Yes.
from or seen Paul in years, and I hope Paul's enjoying retirement, and I hope him and Leslie are really happy and healthy.
And if anyone could please make sure Paul watches this podcast.
And I hope he does, because, I had and have so much respect for Paul Poirier. Now, Paul and I frequently found ourselves on different sides of issues. But I would think back to Paul's service on the council, and there would be occasion when a city councilor made a motion, and there was no second. There was dead silence. Oh. And Paul would look at that councilor, and he'd say something to the effect that, there's no way in hell I'm voting for your motion.
Yeah.
I'm not going to support it,
but
I'm going to second it.
Yeah.
Because you obviously want to talk about it, and I believe in having a thorough debate.
Yeah.
And Paul would second that motion as a courtesy and let the debate play out. And then, true to his word, Paul usually wouldn't support the motion.
Right.
But there was always that level of respect. And, JD, to the extent, I'm sorry, to the extent I've ever added to that, I think when you step away from public service and then you watch others do it, sometimes I have those moments where I look at things and say, holy cow, did I do that?
Yeah.
And I probably did,
Yeah.
During my service. But right now, these are just such divisive times.
They are.
More than ever, we need to show folks a little bit of courtesy.
Yes. Sherilyn, yeah.
Should I sing Kumbaya now?
Yeah, no. Sherilyn was, we were talking about this, and she was like, this would have played out differently if this was in England, in Parliament. I mean, people would have been hopping over desks and chairs would have been thrown and hot
Parliament can be awesome sometimes. It's like
hot coffee.
It's
be
like
flying
celebrity
through the air.
death match, man. It's like of course, we probably do the same thing, in the U.S. But yeah,
right.
And JD, listen, I saw all of the comments. I didn't join in, not going to. And I understand, some people expressed concern that they said, well, when the insurrectionists attacked the Capitol on January 6th, the American flag was sort of their simple, well, listen, they're not stealing my flag.
Yeah, you're right.
That was abhorrent.
Yeah.
That was un-American. They weren't patriots. That's
right.
just my opinion. Sorry.
But I'm going to say...
I'm entitled to it. And I'll be damned if I'm going to say, okay, then I'm not flying the American flag because they tried to steal it.
I think this is probably the best soundbite of the podcast, right? No, I'm serious. Right there. You just said it.
It's just how I feel.
I'm going to say this. Brian Judd is not an insurrectionist. He's the furthest thing from it.
I hope I didn't imply that because
he's a patriot, and he's an American, and he's a veteran, and he's very passionate about his country.
He is.
He's not an insurrectionist.
I hope I didn't imply that because, I don't believe that to be true.
Others have.
I realize that others have, including a city councilor. I saw the post. I read the post. I don't think it is appropriate. And quite frankly, my reaction to that post was, who the hell are you to decide who gets a platform? We call that censorship. And you don't decide that as a city council. The citizens of Barrie decide. They decide who gets to stand up on a soapbox. Because if you stand there and nobody's listening to you, you might as well get down. So, that's not your choice.
Right.
And, the name calling, I can tell you, I've never had, I haven't had a ton of conversations with Brian. I've never had an unpleasant conversation.
Yeah.
He certainly makes his views known.
Yeah.
And yes, he is passionate about it, and who isn't?
Right.
Most of the time we can get passionate about our views, but
listen.
I've never had a conversation with him that wasn't respectful. And regardless, he's taken positions I don't agree with. I've taken positions I'm sure he doesn't agree with. So what? I'm talking about this moment in time with him sitting before the council as a citizen, requesting to fly a flag, doing it respectfully, seeing no ulterior motive, jumping through the hoops, checking the boxes that you asked him to check, and then at the last minute you pull the football because it's Brian Judd. Not cool.
And listen, I don't want to get you.
So don't get me all riled up.
No, I'm just saying. But listen, all of these comments that are coming in, mostly from Teddy on City Council, are public comments.
Listen,
so I'm not gonna, Tom, I'm not gonna go away from
the counselor. Now,
I won't.
He and I hold very different views on things. I admire his passion. I don't believe that he has ulterior. Those are his beliefs. And it's okay.
But to say that counselors with an S on the end,
yes,
as in more than one, plural,
understand,
have received threats of violence, and I'm quoting here, threatening phone calls in the, quote, middle of the night, including death threats.
That never happened.
It never happened, Tom.
The death threats part. And he corrected that. And he said he corrected that. So, come on.
Yeah,
let's be fair.
He did. He did. But you can't, Tom. You can't do this and then immediately start.
There were certainly
playing the victim card.
You
can't do that, Tom.
I don't think we got to whip everybody. It's early in the morning. It's too early to be whipped into a frenzy.
But we both have seen the police report. There's nothing. There's no language in here that's threatening.
I hope
None.
we can. All I would say for Barry is, and I think for the most part we do, let's express our differences civilly. Let's be civil about it. Because whether I agree with you or not, they're your beliefs,
right?
And I have to, you have to respect that, JD. And so some of the comments that I saw on Facebook, there's no reason to tell somebody to leave the country, for God's sakes. I mean, you got a different belief, Like I said, I admire the counselor for stating clearly why she did not second the motion. I admire her for that. And I thank her for that because she explained her vote, which is better than sitting there in silence and just...
Tom, here's where you and I disagree. And we can wrestle right now if you want to get in the ring.
I'm
just saying, no. I don't have, I'm just being honest here, I don't have respect for someone who says that they feel that they've been held hostage by our American flag.
That is not what she said. She said she felt, and I could be wrong, but when I watched the meeting, I thought what she said was she felt held hostage by the discussion. And I've felt that way myself at times on the council, where there was a decision before you, and you knew that regardless of your decision, there was going to be controversy. And sometimes
was she put up to saying that? Do you think that there was some,
it wouldn't be fair. Wouldn't be fair to speculate, because that would be a blatant violation of the Vermont Open Meeting Law. And I am absolutely not going to speculate because I wasn't there. That's not fair to accuse people of something.
All right.
Unless you know.
Do we know why? Do we know why some counselors weren't there? Do we know why some counselors didn't second the motion? Why didn't the
I
other...
don't know. I'm not their keeper.
I'm just wondering why there were crickets.
I'm not going to get.
I just want. Do you wonder why there were crickets? Do you wonder why there were...
The explanation that was given, and the way I read the counselor's post, was the counselor was speaking for all of the counselors. That's the way the post read. And he was explaining that the motion, and he explained the reason, this is the reason, because it was Mr. Judd, and we didn't want to give him a platform, and he's an insurrectionist, and, so this is why the motion didn't get a second. And it certainly, if you read the post, it sounded like he was speaking for all of them. I had heard from another counselor. She stated her reasons clearly. Now, whether I agreed with them or not doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, and I'm not going to put her down for it.
It's unfortunate, after all the work that Mr. Judd has put into having this cable secured.
Yeah, these are very different discussions.
That the flag
after all
didn't
of the
fly.
work, I felt like the expectation was certainly there that the council would approve this if he checked all the boxes. I absolutely believe that the motion was not seconded and the motion was not supported because it was Mr. Judd. It was Brian Judd making the request. So those are my beliefs. Like me or hate me for them, those are my beliefs. And that's why I did what I did.
Yeah.
But I tried to be thorough. I called professionals who do fabrication. First question was, can we do this safely? Because if you can't, big gust of wind comes up, would it ever topple the lift? And, and they're like, no. Can you secure it safely to the man bucket so that no matter what, safety is the first priority. And if we can check that box, then, okay, let's move forward. Now let's go to the logistics of making it happen. So in retrospect, I have no regrets about making that phone call. I have no regrets about, arranging for that, and I never will.
Yeah. As the former mayor, do you look back in the rearview mirror and see city council as being a council that is capable of tackling and dealing with hard issues? This is one of them. Maybe homelessness would be another one.
Yep.
How do you feel about that? Are they capable of
this council?
Yeah.
JD, I go through life every day believing we are all capable of amazing things. The tragedy of competency, the tragedy of rising to the occasion is that it normally takes a crisis to get us to do it. For example, the few times that Barrie flooded, I was never more proud of the folks at the city, of our city staff, public works, our EMTs, our firemen, our police officers. Man, it sucked that it took a crisis, that it took a city with 3 feet of mud to recognize just how well they could perform in a crisis, but that's exactly what happened. So do I think this council can perform and make the hard decisions? That's up to them. I think people are capable of anything. You've done some great things in your life. During that time when Barrie flooded, the radio station and all of the time that you were on the air, that was sort of the lifeline for folks who needed to know what was going on and needed to know where help was available. So, in times of crisis, 20 years ago on 9/11, people stepped up, and it's I think why not? Why can't this council?
We just had a community forum that was massive.
Yeah,
Vermont Council on Rural Development.
Yeah,
it was huge, and we have more information coming out. We have a big meeting coming up at the Barrie Auditorium very soon, in a couple of days, where we're kind of trying to condense all this information and put it together into an action of a play.
Yeah.
Of what we're going to do. The council has got a lot of work to do. There's a lot of issues.
They do.
It's not just drugs. It's not just homelessness.
We've all got a lot of work to do. It's not. Look, you can't just say, "Hey, it's the council's problem." Yes, they are elected, and they certainly take the lead on it, and that's appropriate. But come on, we all have a little heavy lifting to do.
Yeah.
And like Mr. Judd, when the council makes good decisions, I will be the first one to thank them for it. And it's not an easy job.
No.
It's not an easy job.
What about you?
You think about it every day. To this day, JD, I still react to sirens. Sure. Not in a weird way. Not like I'm not trying to not like that.
I understand.
But when I stepped down as mayor, when I would hear sirens, because normally if I would hear, not like one siren, but if I would hear multiple sirens, the next thing I would be doing is texting dispatch, what's going on. Not when I wasn't mayor, when I was mayor. And, it took a while for that. It just gets my attention to this day.
Of course.
When I hear multiple sirens, I just pause for a moment, and then you think, okay, not my place. So it's a hard job, and I think this council is absolutely capable of making hard decisions and making the right decisions. But I think, they need to hear from people, and and we need to do some of the heavy lifting too.
And they also need to know that Barrie's listening.
Barrie always listens. I mean, I can tell you from experience, because I made plenty of mistakes. If you question whether they're listening, go ahead and make a mistake. You'll hear about it really quickly, and you'll figure out, wow, they're listening every day.
Mr. McKenzie.
Yes.
Hopefully, we'll get him in here. We'll sit him down.
I don't know that you ever will.
Well, we tried. You called him. He didn't call you back.
He didn't. He didn't. No, Steve is not.
I know he's not a lights
Steve
and camera.
He's not a lights and camera kind of guy. He is totally apolitical.
I get it.
He is so hardworking. boy, he's going to be tough to replace.
We have a lot of work to find
do,
someone who's
yeah.
going to fill some big shoes.
Yeah.
You were not invited to the table.
Now we're going there.
What's that all about? There's no chair with your name on it. What's going on? I mean,
Man, I'm going to start calling you Howard Stern or something.
I'm putting the heat on you, buddy.
Again, we talked about all you have to do is walk around town and mention my name. And I can almost guarantee you there will be very few people who will just shrug and won't have an opinion. They will either jump right down my throat, or they will praise me more than I deserve to be praised. Okay, there's really no in between with me.
Understand?
It's it's right side, left side, and that's it. There's no middle, and so I believe that I was not chosen. So early on, when the city said, "Hey, we're going to have this manager search committee. They're going to assist the council. They're going to put, they're going to choose. I think they're going to narrow it down to 4 names, as I recall, and then forward those names to the council. The council would conduct the final interviews again with Mr. McKenzie's assistance, I'm sure, and I hope Carol Dawes' assistance, because she has a really unique perspective, because she is the elected official who works most closely in the same building, 12 hours a day with the city manager. So I hope they allow her a seat at the table as well. So I submitted my name. I was part of the team that chose Mr. McKenzie to be our city manager. Prior to that, I was part of the team that chose John Craig to be our city manager. Both, Mr. Craig ended up resigning as city manager because he was relocating to be closer to family. I think he served the city well and with distinction. I think there's no argument that Mr. McKenzie certainly has. So I submitted my name, saying I have a lot of institutional experience working with successful city managers. And
right.
So I showed up. There was a deadline. I got my letter of intent, I guess you'd call it, in before the deadline.
Yeah.
There were a certain number of candidates. I received an email from the assistant to the city manager saying, you must show up on this day to introduce yourself to the council. Yeah. And so I did. I did as I was told and waited through the council meeting, and at the appropriate time introduced myself and explained why I felt I was qualified and why I wanted to serve on the committee. Not less than half of the candidates who were sent the email saying, hey, show up, actually showed up. I was one who did. And I saw the handwriting on the wall when all of a sudden the council started to move the goalposts, saying, well, we'll give them a second. Maybe they...
I was going to say, this sounds like musical... it sounds like musical chairs, and you ended up...
So do I believe it was personal? I know it was personal. There are other counselors who felt I should have, so I know it was. JD, that's fine. That's fine. Listen, I've had an amazing amount of success, and by success, I never define my success by the size of my wallet, just like you don't judge a man's character by the size of his wallet, and you don't ever confuse the two. But I've had an amazing amount of success. Central Vermont has been so good to me. I hope on some level, I've given back. But when I think about everything that I do in business, the companies that I run, the projects that I run, if I got upset, if I held it in my heart every time somebody said something or did something or took a shot at me, I would have quit 25 years ago. You don't go through life holding hate in your heart. And there was a period of time where I did. And you don't. You let it go and you move on. This council did not, in terms of my experience. So they wouldn't even explain the decision, which is actually required in the Vermont Open Meeting Law.
Yeah.
First of all, I question whether they can go into executive session. This is an ad hoc committee. It is not a permanent committee. It has one charge. It dissolves. You can go into executive session to discuss the appointment of a public official or employee. I think it's a stretch to call people who serve on this ad hoc committee public officials. But regardless, they made the choice they made. executive session isn't designed to prevent someone's feelings from being hurt. So if somebody on the council just said, Thom Lauzon's an ass, and I'm not appointing him to anything.
Or what was it? Move on from Lauzon?
Yeah, or we got to move on from Thom Lauzon. Well, good luck with that. Anyway, so again, JD, but the Vermont Open Meeting Law requires you to state your reasons. Once you make that decision, you've got to vote it in open session.
Right.
And it's right in the statute. You have to clearly explain the reason for your vote.
Yeah.
So as I looked at who was chosen, and there were a lot of fine people.
Yep.
And I said, well, why wasn't I? I was the only candidate who actually participated in the last 2 city manager searches. So, so if their reason was, we wanted people who hadn't served the city before to do it. Well, there were folks who were appointed who were certainly serving the city in other capacities and other committees, so it couldn't have been that reason. So again, everybody knows it. I know it. Councilor Bruton certainly knows it. It was because it was me. But that is a dangerous, dangerous thing. I was talking about Brian, and when people would come into the council when I served, and when you have the opportunity to make that canyon narrower, you seize that opportunity. Council can make any decision they make, but when you start making...
Did they drop the ball that night by not trying to bridge that gap?
Why don't you have some of them in and ask?
I've
and
asked.
Why don't you put them on the...
I've asked.
Well, I don't... I'll let them answer for themselves.
Okay.
I told you what I think, and I'll let them speak for themselves. It's okay. I mean, it's okay. I'm sure, believe me, I will be watching this process closely. I live here. And I believe the council will make a good choice. There are some folks I've already encouraged to apply because I think they would make, men and women, who would make a great city manager. So, we'll see how it plays out. But again, I'm not going to be all upset over it.
Yeah.
They made their choice, and they have the right to vote. But I think if you start putting personalities into it and you say, well, I'm not going to look at their qualifications, I'm not going to look at what they might bring to the discussion, I'm just going to look at their first and last name, and my opinion starts and ends there. Boy, that's, then you get into incompetence, gross incompetence. And I hope we're not there. We saw a little taste of it in that, and with Brian, the decision about the flag. I think the council members have probably had some time to self-reflect a bit. I've been there where, I made plenty of bad decisions, and then, in the weeks and months that follow, you have a chance to self-reflect, and you figure out, I don't want to do that ever again. That was wrong of me. So maybe they're, so you give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that's where they are.
Have you ever disagreed with anything I've said?
Oh, good Lord, never. You're just wonderful. Yes, you're just a god.
So I'm the only one?
Wait a minute.
I'm the only one?
Hold on. Oh, I just got to, because you had prepared this for me, remember?
Yeah.
You are a Greek god, an Adonis, a man among men, and no, I have never disagreed with you. Love, Thom.
Yeah, perfect. You read that very well. Thanks for coming in here, buddy.
Thanks for having me. And hey, listen, you do a great thing here in Barrie. I love the fact that you hit some of the tough issues.
Are we still friends?
I try to be friends with everybody.
Yes.
You get you chill as you get older. You start to figure out that what's important, what's not, and like I said, control is an illusion. None of us are in control. We're only in control of how we react. So, words of wisdom from your Uncle Thom.
Thanks, Uncle Thom. Thanks for coming in here, buddy.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. My goodness, our former mayor speaking very candidly today on the podcast. Thanks to Vermont Custom Woodworking and the Barrie Montpelier Times-Argus. Donnybrook Fight Promotion making the big announcement yesterday, February 19th. The Battle in Barrie 6 is coming back to the Barrie Auditorium. Who will be in the cage? Will it be me and Thom Lauzon? You don't know. Wright Electric, Fontaine Forestry and Millwork, Gauthier's Quality Grounds and Maintenance, K&W Tire, Emsley's Floors and Gifts, Granite City MMA, and Barslow Construction.
All had a vision of Michael Booten in tights.
What? What did you say?
You mentioned, like, you know, the wrestling match, the MMA. Michael Booten in tights? We can settle all these council differences in one shot.
Michael, it was not me that said that. I have nothing.
Well, wait a minute.
No part of this.
I'm onto something here.
Yeah. Can we just say...
You can count on me, JD.
Have you seen him blow up balloons? Have you seen his balloon art?
Michael?
Yeah.
It is inspiring.
Amazing.
Oh, my God. Kids love it. I love it.
And his voice. I mean, the guy can sing.
Yeah. He's one of my favorites. Michael, I hope that remark wasn't viewed as disparaging. I just when you mentioned, like, settle our differences, because Michael is so compassionate and, you know, and gentle, that I just like, oh my God. When you mentioned you and I, because I'm not going in the ring, so I'm like, okay, who could I get in there with JD? Michael Booten.
No.
Well,
Yeah, no.
I'm here to help.
All right, I'm cutting you off. Thom Lauzon, everybody, here on Aired Out. Thanks for catching the show.